Ooh, that's some bold takes right there. Okay, we're talking with Chris and Gordy over on Locked On Sooners. We're going to ask some questions. John Mateer, quarterback in the SEC. How does he match up? We'll talk about that more here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there for tuning in and subscribing to the show. You can find us wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. We've got Chris Gordy from Locked On SEC here. Gotta ask you, my man. John Mateer comes in, was one of the top quarterbacks in the country statistically. 44 touchdowns is pretty big. 3,100 passing yards, 800 rushing yards, massive numbers. How do you feel he compares to quarterbacks in the SEC as we got to see a QB-OC combo make a transition from, I guess, a Mountain West with New Mexico State's Diego Pavia and Tim Beck come in to Vanderbilt and look pretty darn solid with some of their wins? How do you feel about John Mateer compared to everybody else in the SEC this year?
You know, I was very high on him. I got to speak with him at the Manning Passing Academy a few weeks ago, and very mature guy. I love, just very thoughtful guy, thought about his answers, had some humor. You know, I asked him about Ben Arbuckle joining him, and, you know, right off the bat, his joke was, man, I can't escape this guy. He just follows me everywhere. And, you know, I thought it was really funny and just a very personable guy. I was like, this is a personality I think is going to fit, you know, in the SEC. He told me how he's been adjusting in Norman, how all the teammates took him in immediately as soon as he got there and all that. The problem is, as high as I was on him and feeling good coming out of that and looking at his stats and going, gosh, you know, the running ability and all this, somebody said, now go look at who he did it against. And I had to go back and look and went, yeah, I mean, you can't do anything about the schedule that Washington State played last year, but you do look at it and go, okay, well, you know, was he really tested? And so that's where I look at it and go, this is a big boy schedule he's coming into now. So, but then I watched some of the film, and a lot of it is concepts. A lot of it, you know, you can even argue he's going to have way better talent around him than he had at Washington State. This is better receivers, better O-line, better everything. So there's that element of it too. But I like him. He's tough. You know, his running ability, he's not afraid to take a hit. That's what you need to play in the SEC. You're going to get hit in this league. You know, do you bounce back when you make a mistake? Is it sticking in your mind for the next 10 plays, or are you flipping the page going, put that behind you? You got to go operate now. Those are all elements that I'm looking for out of Mateer. And again, you know, what does it look like when you get into SEC play? I think most Texas fans and Oklahoma fans I've talked to, you know, some of them are, big bad SEC and all this. Most of them I talked to after year one went, oh no, I get it now. Like it's when you have to play Tennessee and then Alabama, and there's no break, right? There's no respite. It's, you know, and the minute you let your guard down, that's when you get beat in this league. So I think most Oklahoma fans know that now. I think Brent Venables and his staff understand it, and it is a one game at a time mentality you have to have. But all that said, again, I don't want to disparage the opponents that he faced last year, because you can't do nothing about it. But I am still very high on Mateer. I think there's a chance we're looking back at the end of this year and saying he was a top 5 quarterback. Now, what does that look like, right? I mean, you know, Garrett Nussmeier could have 4,000 yards and, you know, 38 touchdown passes, but LSU could have 3 losses. You know, so people are going to ding him. Whereas, you know, Ty Simpson could, you know, I don't know, he could have a mediocre year, but Alabama's 11-1. So you never know, you know, how are we judging this? You know, Austin Simmons is going to throw for a ton of yards at Ole Miss because that's what Lane Kiffin does. But I'd say when it's all said and done, if we're looking back and saying Mateer had a top 5 season as a quarterback in the SEC, I don't want to just say passing because I think the rushing yards are part of it. But, you know, we look back and say he had a top 5 performance in the SEC. I mean, if things must have went sideways defensively, if they're not at least sitting there with 9-10 wins hoping for a playoff spot.
So do you think that he can outdo what Diego Pavia did last season? Diego Pavia had 2,200 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 4 picks, 800 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. You think he can outdo that 3,000 total combined yards and 28 touchdowns?
I think he'll have more passing yards, definitely. The rushing yards we'll see. You know, Diego, that is his game. I mean, it's almost like there were games last year where he was run first, then look to pass. So I don't think we'll see that from Mateer. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's, I think he'll have more passing yards. The Pavia thing's just tough, man, because we think back to the Alabama game, and yes, he was electric that night. But down the stretch of the season, there were some games where he wasn't as special. At Tennessee, they got out to the early lead, and then, it got ugly fast. Against LSU, he had some moments. They had some not so great moments, and they lost that game in Baton Rouge. So, I just, I hate to make a comparison there, but I think the comparison works in that, yes, Pavia with Jerry Kill and that offense that they brought over from New Mexico did translate. And so if it's going to work with Mateer and Arbuckle, I think there will be success there. But I put Mateer a little bit higher. I say Pavia, great story, almost like rooting for the underdog. I think Mateer is a legit quarterback that will have a legit season.
Okay, so you expect him to be able to actually throw and pass, throw, run, and be a true quarterback without it being a run-centric, a run-first guy, but be able to leverage his legs to help the offense extend things. I like that. I'd actually appreciate that. Okay, got run out of time. I'm going to ask you this, though, Gordy. Who's your favorite in the SEC right now? Who do you think is going to be in the championship game? Who do you think is going to win it?
I go back to SEC Media Days. I picked Georgia just because I thought, Kirby Smart, to me, gets the benefit of the doubt. I've been saying I think Texas takes a little bit of a step back. They're still super talented. I think the defense is awesome. I think Arch is going to be good, but I think it's going to be this. I think there's going to be dips, and it's going to be like a roller coaster. 1 week he's awesome. 1 week he maybe struggles a little bit. And, I think it maybe cost Texas a couple games. So, I picked Georgia and LSU to get to Atlanta. I had Georgia winning it. I could probably be talked into LSU winning it. But, a lot just depends on, does Georgia get back to – a lot of people are talking about Gunnar Stockton and say, what does he do and all this. They forget Carson Beck cost Georgia so much with those interceptions last year. Like, he had some great touchdown passes, some great moments, but, God, every week there was a stretch where he threw like 2-3 interceptions a week. I don't think Gunnar Stockton does that. I think he protects the football a little bit more, tucks the ball, takes the sack when he has to, plays field position. And if that Georgia defense gets back to being that suffocating, dominant Georgia defense that we're used to under Kirby Smart, I think Georgia wins another SEC championship.
Okay, that's pretty bold and to the point. I can totally see where we give, I guess, Georgia the benefit of the doubt, while at the same time, they're basically going to be the favorite just about any time. They're the only winners of the SEC outside of LSU one time and then Alabama over the last few years.
But Texas
kind of is expected.
Texas has been the sexy pick. Like, they're the preseason number one. They're the darlings. That's the one that people are all picking. So, Georgia, I'm going out on a limb picking Georgia.
That is very true. You are going out on a limb, and Georgia now is the underdog in their mind. I guess, isn't that what Kirby Smart tries to put out there for everybody, that they're always doubted, they're always overlooked, even though they won back-to-back national championships? And everyone thinks they're going to win the conference every year.
The last championship, what was this? People were picking us to lose 4 games. It's like, nobody picked you to do. They found some rando on Bleacher Report that wrote a piece like, I think Georgia loses 4 games. Like, Kirby's going to dig deep. He's going to find some like MySpace article that somebody picked them to lose 6 games,
Oh, yeah. He's living on Reddit right now, so he can that or Facebook into the really bad AI groups of finding someone that's going to tell them that.
You see what these guys are saying about you? Like, no one is saying that. Stop.
No one's saying that. Okay, Gordy, let me ask you last thing. Where do you think Oklahoma finishes within the SEC? What ranking, what number do you see them finishing at now?
Gosh,
after all the convincing I gave you.
Yeah. So I gave you a hypothetical that they could be going for a 10th win last season. Let me give you what I really think is going to happen. I think it's an 8-4 season. I think it's an improvement over last year. I think they're just shy of a playoff, but I think you see much improvement this year. And so, what does that do? Does that save Venables' job? I think so. And then the questions are, where do you go from here? What's the future? I know a lot of people were high on Michael Hawkins, coming in last year, got his chance to, some ups and some downs. He suffered the same fate as Jackson Arnold. It's like injuries everywhere. You can't even get a good read on what he is. But, that'll be interesting to see where they go into the 2025 offseason into 2026 on what this team's going to look like next year. But I think 8-4 is fine. I think you'll go to a nice bowl game. I think, it's an improvement over last year. It shows you can compete in the SEC. I think that's what ultimately people want to see out of Oklahoma this year.
I agree. That's the thing that matters the most. It's Chris Gordy, host of Locked on SEC. Please go check him out. Like, subscribe, watch his videos. I literally steal all of his takes to add to this show. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it, man.
No problem. And thank you all for joining us here on Locked on Sooners. Thank you for being part of the show. Please hit the like, subscribe, and the bell notification for your second listen. Of course, Locked on SEC is definitely one on there. Locked on College Football, as well as check out The Portal with Brian Smith if you need your fix on recruiting. So, for Chris, for John, I'm Jay Smith. We will talk to you all later. Boomer Sooner.